I know for you this has been a long and hard-fought campaign. Where do you think we are on it?
Well, after the other night, I think it was a watershed moment the other night. The way that Gareth Southgate and the players handled it was magnificent. They couldn't win. They couldn't win. 50% of people think they should have come off the pitch. 50% of the people think they should have stayed on the pitch. I was one of those. If we'd have come off the pitch, the racists win, because that's what they were there for. It was an organised, fascist, far-right people who were intent on black players not playing football. So they were trying to get them off that football pitch.
The argument, Cammy, against sort of staying on the pitch was that, yes, you're right, on the night, England would have had to walk off the pitch and they would have achieved their goal. However, long-term, it would have had a much bigger impact if England had walked out, because globally it would have made a bigger statement.
I believe the statement that was made the other night will be big, Ben. Absolutely massive. If we'd have come off the pitch, say someone like Tyrone Mings, a black player who was subject to racist abuse, making his debut for England, that would have been totally, totally forgotten. He kept a clean sheet, he played a game for England, he got abused by the supporters. We come off the pitch and the whole time he is remembered as one of the players who came off the pitch at that particular time. But government's getting involved, UEFA getting involved. Now the call to action has become massive. We don't want this to happen again. Other countries don't want this to happen again. Bulgaria, their government have got involved with their football association, and there will be bans for people within their football association because of what went on the other day. And now that good, if there was anything good to come out of it, that is probably the best thing.
So what could and should UEFA be doing that's more?
Well, they need to do a lot. They need to get governments involved, and that is the main thing, because governments have taken a bit of a backseat. They think that football should look after themselves. It's in-house. You do what you need to do for football. But these far-right people are using football as a conveyor belt to spread their hatred, you know, and
a political message, yeah.
Yeah, leave a message. So racism isn't a football problem. It's carried in football, but it's a society problem. You know, when you look at hate crime in this country, there's over 100,000 complaints to police in the last 12 months. You know, that can't be right. That cannot be right in this country alone. And that's the reason why Show Racism the Red Card is very proactive in schools. You're not born a racist, but you live around racism. People tell you about racism things and you act accordingly in a way. And that's why, instead of trying to drive players off the football pitch, let's drive the racists out of football.
You were playing top-level football in the 80s and the 90s as well, of course. What was your...
70s, unfortunately.
And the 70s as well. I was going to let that one go. It's unlike me as well.
Yeah.
But what was your experience, Cammy, of being a black player in the top level back in those days?
Well, it was horrendous, Ben. Very difficult in those circumstances. National Front was so prominent back in the day. They didn't want you playing football. They didn't want black players anywhere near football pitches. And they abused us. You know, I'm not the only one. Black players around and will tell you of stories. Society, you know, 2/3 of society was racist. Even if they say they weren't, they sat and they watched racist programmes and they laughed at racist programmes. And then when I went in the dressing room, the players would say, "Oh, you don't mind, do you, Cammy?" And you didn't, because you knew you were one voice against everybody else. So you couldn't, you know...
So there has been... So I guess what I'm getting at is that back then it was really prevalent. It was everywhere. There has been a huge change. However, it does feel like more recently, in the last couple of years, maybe it's the advent and the proliferation of social media, but it's coming back to the fore. There's certainly a spread of far-right beliefs across Europe as well. And it feels like some of these young black players now are getting the abuse that you had to deal with back in the 80s. And we had hoped maybe had faded and gone from the game.
Oh, without a doubt, at international level. Within the Premier League, it's minimal. We saw the Raheem Sterling stuff. It's minimal, but it's a society problem, Ben. And that is the thing. Today is the biggest anti-racism day in the UK. And they try to get some funding to help that, because they don't get funding from the Premier League, the Football League, you know, from the government. They need to help them. So they're trying to stamp it out at source and
And they want everyone to wear red today. Is that
Yeah,
to show their support?
that's the campaign. Yeah, to wear red today to show your support.
Which is why I've got my red tie, and you've got your reddish tie. It's the most red that we had. We can't have you on, Cammy, without asking a couple of extra questions as well. First and foremost, we don't wake up with each other anymore on a Sunday morning.
Oh. No.
I'm devastated. I'm not sure you're quite as devastated. Alex Scott, though, who's sitting on the sofa with you on Goals on Sunday.
Alex is great. To be able to do that, Ben, and do the show, you couldn't do that in a million years.
That's why I keep saying to this lot, there's no chance. There's my excuse for not doing it.
No, she's doing absolutely great. She's having a week off this week. So,
okay.
Did they ask you to come back?
No, they didn't. She's having a week off.
She's having a week off
9 years
because
I
she's
wasn't
on the
allowed a week
Strictly
off.
tour.
In 9 years, I wasn't allowed a week off.
So apparently they go away.
Oh, he's furious now. Look at this.
How did she get a week off? It's only still...
She's just
who's
so
with you?
brilliant.
Laura Woods
That's
is going to be with me this week.
Woods will be there, which is good. And the other thing...
We've got to ask about this.
The album, Cammy.
You've made an album.
Can't tell you the set list as yet, and we have one new song that's written by Richard Scott, Here's to Christmas, and we're hoping to get that to #1.
Well, do you know
Proper
what?
Christmas
You know
song.
how Ben, it can be a little bit mischievous. My hair knows all about that from earlier on. A little bit mischievous, and he's always teasing you. When we were talking about this earlier, he said, it's absolutely brilliant. You're absolutely brilliant.
You weren't supposed to tell
you've
him I
been
said that. You weren't supposed to tell No.
But don't forget he's
hiding
there.
alone. It's a
I'm
fair
totally
point.
tone deaf. That's the truth. So, but the album's not out till November the 15th, 16th?
15th.
So
we look
November the
forward to
15th,
that.
and then we're going to be able to start hearing it. I promise you.
Looking forward to
I'm
that.
very proud of my old mate over there because he's done something very
Yeah.
special.